Hello, audience. It's Controversial Quotes, and today we're going to have a discussion about the civil war within the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party over involvement in Iran. I want to discuss Iran now because it's in the news. The Iranians just blew up a hospital. It's all over Twitter. Well, I mean, fortunately, they emptied the hospital yesterday because I'm sure they knew it was coming. And I don't think I'm. They said the whole wing that the whole wing of the hospital that the Iranian ICBM hit was destroyed, but nobody was there. I'm reasonably confident that Trump is going to use the bunker buster to hit the facility in Fordo. I support doing that. You know, Iran has supplied Russia with Al Shahib 3 drones that have decimated Ukrainian infrastructure. I mean, Russia and Iran believe it's okay to, launch missile strikes against hospitals, wherein, the United States, Israel, and Ukraine tend to orchestrate pinpoint strikes. I mean, if you look at the X feed of the Israeli strikes against Iran, you're going to notice that they used pinpoint targeting methods to hit facilities that are located far underground with bunker busting bombs. All of the facilities that they destroyed were of a military purpose. And concerning Ukraine, if you look at the how they blew up all of the Russian bombers, you'll notice that they used pinpoint targeting methodologies. Some This is a battle between civilized people and uncivilized people. For the Iranians to blow up a hospital, that services a lot of Arab Bedouins was for me one of that was an indicator that the United States has to get involved in the conflict. Now, what what do Democrats and Republicans say about United States involvement in the conflict? Well, you're going to find that all Democrats are basically opposed to it. I saw a press conference with Chuck Schumer and Patty Murray saying they were not going to rubber stamp a Trumpian assault on Iranian nuclear facilities. David Hogg is a big Democratic influencer now. I mean, I respect him. I mean, the only thing I know about his views, other than that which he thinks about gun control, is that he lines up with Tucker Carlson. David Hogg does not want to spend another $2 trillion on war, and David Hogg is railing against the notion that the United States should help Israel defend itself against daily daily ICBM strikes from Iran. I mean, I guess David Hogg doesn't believe in self defense. I think David Hogg is his name. Maybe I'm confusing it, but if you look at Ted Cruz's Twitter account, you're going to see that he uh, got into a heated argument over over Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson got into a heated argument over Carlson's support for Putin. I mean, Tucker Carlson has become a propagandist for Putin. He advocated taking out Zelensky this surprised me. Now, if you look up what Tucker Carlson said about Iran when he was talking to, I think, Christopher Hitchens, you're going to find that Carlson, wanted the United States to take out the Iranian nuclear facilities then, but he's changed his mind. Tucker Carlson has become a MAGA isolationist in the tradition of Pat Buchanan. Tucker was against the Iraq War. I remember after all of the looting happened and the United States toppled Saddam. That doesn't surprise me from Tucker Carlson. Um, I am a little bit surprised that the congressional Democrats are so opposed to the United States getting involved in the Iran-Israel war. I would suspect that some of them, like Chuck Schumer, at least, would have some common sense. I would suspect that Chuck Schumer might believe that the United States should see to it that Israel wins through whatever means necessary. But that being said, there are problems with Israel continuing on with their campaign in Iran. It seems like Iran has an unlimited supply of missiles, and Israel has a highly limited supply of missile interceptors. And the videos I'm seeing on X are just terrifying. We've seen videos of the most sophisticated weapons system that the United States has, called THAAD, take out a hypersonic missile that was fired all the way above Earth's atmosphere. I mean, the war is spiraling out of control. I mean, I guess my instinct is to say that the United States should, let Israel take out the facilities and decapitate the regime, but it seems like that might be a tall order. On issues of war and peace, you always have to weigh that which is possible versus that which you want. It's not. I mean, I'm aware of the fact that achieving a regime change in Iran is a very difficult thing to do. I'm not sure that bombing all of the government headquarters in Iran is beneficial to Israel, since Iran has enough missiles to knock over every office building within the state of Israel. So it seems to me like a Trump-backed ceasefire, might be in order. But I happen, we don't know if Trump is going to bomb Iran or if he's not going to bomb Iran. He's really leaving that prospect up in the air. Unfortunately, Donald Trump has totally betrayed Ukraine. The Canadians are sending a $2 billion aid package, and Ukraine is getting valuable howitzers that they need from other countries in Europe. But it really disgusts me how Trump is surrendering to Putin. I mean, it seems like we should be sending Ukraine all of the rockets that we have in order to decimate the the Russian army. Russians are at over 1 million casualties now. The casualties are so high because they invaded Ukraine by emptying their prisons into it. They put the soldiers on the front line and told the soldiers that if they don't charge into Ukraine, they were going to get executed. And because of that, it seems like half of Ukraine was conquered by brutal human wave attacks. The savagery that Russia has inflicted on Ukraine is an atrocity, the likes of which we haven't seen since that of the Second World War. We've seen, and Russia has become an industrialized mass murder machine that threatens the existence of the planet. Russia's goal is to achieve hegemony over Europe through nuclear extortion. I do not believe that Europeans should appease nuclear extortion. There's no reason to, because they have nuclear bombs also. I mean, and if Putin insists on conquering Europe, he has to get shown that the nuclear war will eventually come about. Yeah, and the first battlefield that we should challenge the Russians on is in Ukraine. And it saddens me that the United States is not participating at all under Trump. Ted Cruz was heavily critical of Tucker Carlson for his support of Putin. Mike Pence was seemed to be critical of Donald Trump's stance on Ukraine. Uh, Mike Pence stated that he felt that the Russian invasion of Ukraine was barbaric, and I agree. I mean, it's unfortunate that MAGA has become a bunch of surrenderers. I mean, they have no will to send money to the Ukrainians and plot with American-backed weapons to kill the Russians in Donbass, and that's just a stupid thing for them to do. It makes, I mean, Trump, his slogan is "Make America Great Again," but he's really making America into a white flag surrender country. Trump's isolationism for me is just appalling. Um, and the images. But back to the Israeli-Palestinian issue. I'm not sure exactly how to solve that. I tend to avoid discussing that because there is no solution really. A lot of good people unfortunately get killed and maimed because of the issue. I think between the Israelis and the Palestinians, you're never really going to have peace. You just have to work to let cooler heads prevail. Um, the situation in Gaza is caused by the fact that Hamas won't release the hostages. I mean, it's up to Hamas to release the hostages. But that being said, obviously Israel might have went a little bit too far in insisting on in insisting on attempting to kill all of the members of Hamas. It's obvious there are tens of thousands of Palestinians that support Hamas, unfortunately, and it seems like Israel is in a bind. Israel has no good options. They're running out of interceptors, and the campaign in Gaza has no aim. It seems. Now, what I think that the situation is being, I believe that the situation in Gaza is being made worse by Ukrainian encouragement, by Iranian encouragement. I believe that it would be good to have a regime change in Iran. When David Hogg states that he doesn't want there to be another generation of Americans spending $1 trillion overseas on war, I would ask him. I mean, how much should we surrender? Does David Hogg believe that Israel has a right to have interceptors to prevent the ballistic missiles from raining down on hospitals? Um, and neither political party has an answer. I mean, it seems like the Democrats will say that they're not going to give Trump a rubber stamp, but when push comes to shove, they probably would authorize a bunker buster to destroy the Iranian nuclear facilities that are located on the mountains. Yes, the base of the Democratic Party votes the politicians in, but if the base puts in politicians like the mayoral candidate in New York City, who's like a socialist, then that hurts them as well. It seems like Trump has a lot of economic negativity. I've seen, articles on the net about declining home sales. That's really going to hurt him. Um, the strong suit of the great strength of the Republican Party has always been that they're better on the economy if you elect them. But imposing tariffs doesn't work. I think that imposing tariffs doesn't work insofar as I don't believe in high minimum wages. I think that the Fight for 15 movement is something that the Democrats are going to rue the day they decided to get behind it. Telling a business that you have to pay someone at least $15 per hour makes it so that the business has to generate like 15,000 per day in revenue off of that person. The tariffs are the same. You can't redistribute income through raising the cost of business. When you raise the cost of business with tariffs and minimum wages, you put the business out of business. I haven't even checked the stock market. Let me see it now. How has the stock market done? Uh, well, let's look at the Dow. Oh, it's been hovering. All right, so the Dow has been hovering around where you would expect it to be. I mean, it doesn't seem to me like we've had any huge downward shift in the stock market, but consumers are going to start to get angry when when the effects of the tariffs come in. I work in retail, and it's like I'm always hearing customers complaining about the rising prices. The prices rise due to minimum wages, and tariffs partly. It's just both parties need to adopt a libertarian approach towards the economy. As I say, with the steel tariffs, you're going to find that they benefit the steel workers, but for every steel worker that benefits from the tariffs, there are like 40 other workers that work with steel that lose from the tariffs. So you could obviously see from that data point the fallacy of the Trumpian tariffs. I hope that he gets rid of the tariffs soon. I've never seen the Republican Party remove the minimum wage if you want to start manufacturing. Yeah, I don't have a problem with removing minimum wages at all. I don't think that they're useful. I mean, I think that people who work in manufacturing should be compensated if they get injured. Um, you know, I mean, I know people who get injured at work, and I'm more about worker safety than high minimum wages. The government should regulate employers more. I think just in order to make sure that there are safe working conditions, at the plant or store. The problem with the high minimum wages is that they often don't translate into workers making more money. And tariffs slow down the economy. And it's silly to place a tariff on a Ducati motorcycle because an American works in the Ducati dealership to sell the motorcycle. If you have the tariffs too high, then the Ducati dealership goes out of business. And if you remove the wages, the consumption will go down. I mean, I'm not sure. Well, I mean, how high should the wages be? I mean, should minimum wages be $25 an hour? I, I mean, it's just too difficult for companies to profit from their employees these days because of the cost of running the business. Look at what's going on in the Hollywood studios. California has huge minimum wage. California has very generous minimum wage laws, but you're going to find that Hollywood is becoming a ghost town. People film movies at green screen studios now all over the country because of the high cost of working in LA. So there's no evidence that, a high minimum wage, be it $15 per hour or $20 per hour, is going to really do anything to help the uh, worker. And it goes the same with tariffs. Trump, the best proof that the tariffs don't work comes from Trump. He told Walmart that they're supposed to absorb the cost of the tariffs. And then he started to say that they made billions of dollars last year and they weren't supposed to raise the price. It doesn't seem that Trump ever considered that, if you force Walmart to, pay import taxes, that they're going to pass that cost on to the consumer. I mean, businesses are in business to make money. They aren't, nobody goes into business in order to support Trump's tariff program. But it's going to be interesting to see what Trump does with Iran. I mean, I really think that Trump is going to bomb Iran. I think he's going to use the sophisticated bunker busting bomb that you drop out of huge airplanes that Israel doesn't have. Israel has F-35s and F-16s. But in order to drop a 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb through a mountain, you need an American B-2 Spirit or a C-130, I think. Flying a C-130 over Iran seems to be very risky. I mean, I certainly hope that China does not send, Iran missiles with which to shoot down American stealth bombers. I mean, I certainly believe that the Russians and the Chinese want to get their hands on American technology, and a good way to do that is to shoot down, a good way to do that is for them to send weapons into Iran in order to shoot down, a B-2 stealth bomber. It seems to me like Putin has betrayed Iran because he wants to garner data about the United States THAAD missile system. You're going to notice that the United States, we've seen footage on Twitter of the THAAD missile system being used to down incoming Iranian ICBMs. The Russians are scrutinizing all of that data in order to learn how they could make their ballistic missiles weave around the THAAD missile. It seems like a consequence of the Iran-Israel war could be that the Russians and the Chinese learn how to make THAAD obsolete. It's debatable how much a modern military should invest in missile interception because it's cheaper to use to manufacture a missile than it is a missile interceptor. If you read the Drudge Report, which is my primary source of news, you'll see that the headline is that Israel is running low on Arrow missiles. I would be. I think what that shows is that Trump is going to be forced to make a decision within the next day or two about obliterating Fordo, with like the B-2 stealth bomber and that 30,000-pound bunker busting bomb. This is a scenario wherein he has no good options. I tend to be hawkish, but I'm not naive. I understand that the cost of U.S. The cost of the United States destroying Iranian nuclear reactors is enormous. I mean, if it goes wrong, all hell can break loose in the Middle East. It seems like the Iranians want to attack many of our bases overseas, and they would have an easy time doing that. I haven't seen a lot of evidence that Iranians are taking to the street demanding that their regime implode, and that's what that makes me nervous for the United States and Israel. Um, I understand that the mullahs are extremely unpopular there, but I haven't seen evidence that the people are, you know, willing to, overthrow them. But I do think such a thing is optimal, and I stand firmly against the David Hogg notion that the United States involvement in Iraq, was a bad thing. I think it's unfortunate that the top Democratic influencer doesn't believe that the war in Iraq achieved any good results. I think the fact that David Hogg only sees the Iraq war as a waste of money shows that Democrats don't have any good influencers, that they're all a bunch of far left zealots. You're not going to see really any major Democratic influencer get angry over the fact that Iran just blew up a hospital. You know, I mean that actually that's not true. I'm sure there are lots of Democrats that are furious that Iran blew up the hospital. I know that for a fact. I mean, I want to try to be truthful on this broadcast. You're just not going to see, people like David Hogg, could complain about that because to them, uh, everything is just relative, and you can't determine who the good guys and bad guys are in the war between, Israel and Iran. Um, it saddens me to see that some idiots in New York City were protesting uh, and waving Iranian flags. I don't understand the popularity of the mullahs, amongst the American left. I mean, Christopher Hitchens had a lot to say about the Iranian regime. He said that it would be a big mistake for them to get nuclear weapons because that would be you know, mixing nuclear weapons into the hands of apocalyptic religious zealots. The Iranians believe that the school of Islam that they follow is predominantly 12 or Shia. And there are a bunch of fanatics within this movement. I mean, a lot of those people are very peaceful, but amongst the mullahs in Iran, it's popular to think that if they could, that they believe that if they ignite the Battle of Armageddon with nuclear bombs, then they could bring about their Messiah, the Mahdi. Um, so, I mean, it seems to me like the Ayatollah is somebody who should be stopped. The Ayatollah has an interest in causing a nuclear war with Israel because he thinks that he's going to bring about an Armageddon. That shows me that Trump probably should take out the nuclear facilities. It is important for the United States to be on the forefront of defending freedom throughout the world. And in order to defend freedom, you have to confront dictatorial regimes that blow up hospitals. Now, Iran has sent Russia killer drones that have decimated Ukrainian uh, civilian infrastructure. I mean, the Iranians have massacred thousands of Ukrainians by giving Russia drones, Shahed 3 drones that rain down on Kyiv every day. And every day Kyiv is assaulted by a barbaric Russian regime with Iranian-made weapons. So, it would seem to me that Trump probably would make the right decision if he bombed Fordo. I think that World War III probably is much closer to the horizon than most people want to imagine. It seems even to me that the stock market might be up too high, given how bad the news is. When we see um, countries throughout the world are now issuing travel advisories saying not to go to democratic cities. They cite the George Floyd riots. Um, that disgusts me as an American. I mean, I find it to be appalling that people throughout the world are told not to come to American cities because they're too dangerous. But that being said, I would recommend that citizens in Canada, Germany, and Australia not go to New York. I think New York City, which is a blue city ran by socialists, I think New York City is too dangerous to travel to if you're a foreigner. It's even a dangerous place to travel if you're a lifelong New Yorker. But, I wonder how Democrats feel about foreign governments issuing travel advisories against going to democratic cities, like Detroit, Chicago, LA, Portland. I mean, are Democrats proud of the fact that their cities are always on fire with rampagers, despite the fact that they have these high minimum wages that, for some reason everybody wants? It seems to me like the problem in democratic held cities is that the contempt for police causes the crime to spiral out of control. And I think that this problem actually benefits the Republican Party a lot. The fact that Los Angeles, the fact that there's a lot of chaos in San Francisco, Portland, Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago benefits Republicans. It helps get them elected at the national level. It's easy for Republicans to point to Democratic held cities and say, these people are anarchists. We're the support law enforcement people, and you should vote for us. Um, Republicans should. I think Republicans need to be the pro-police party and anti-marijuana. I think that marijuana legalization throughout America is causing all kinds of problems that are never going to go away. First of all, people don't need marijuana because they can drink beer if they want to get happy buzzed. Marijuana is not a medical drug. It cures nothing and people don't need it. CBD is, I've never used it, by the way, but I know a lot of people who do. It's debatable what medical cures CBD offers, despite the fact that people who sell it claim it's a cure-all. And the Democrats are responsible for the state of drug legalization in America, which has been a total disaster. I mean, if you look at how drug legalization went in Oregon, you're going to find that it didn't help anybody. I believe that the state of Texas was correct to ban marijuana. I think that the pot industry is an industry that doesn't benefit anybody. Again, I think the Democrats are going to rue the day they legalized pot, just like I think Trump is going to regret the fact that he issued those stupid tariffs that I always complain about. The political landscape in America is going to be dominated by a third party, I predict, in the future, and I plan on leading it. But to tell you the truth, there could be multiple third parties. We could have a fourth and a fifth party. Now ballots are done with ranked choice voting, so you could vote your third party first and then pick the Democrat or the Republican. I think ranked choice voting is terrible. I think you should only get to vote for one person. There's no reason why we should keep the Democrats and Republicans in by allowing people to also vote for independence. I need some caffeine. All right. This is what it's like to be in a cult. I do a lot of videos about cults on this channel. Look at the videos I've done about Scientology. They're really good. I mean, Scientology is in very big trouble. All right, so back to Iran versus Israel. Yeah, the videos on Twitter are just horrifying. I mean, Iran thinks nothing of launching a ballistic missile into a hospital. Thank God that the hospital was empty. It's difficult, for someone who's moderately pro-Israel like me, it's difficult to say how they should respond because a lot of times when, Israel responds to an attack like that, they use too strong of an attack like they probably did in Gaza. Israel is a state that probably shouldn't respond directly to those types of attacks, because of the reputational damage that the counterattack would cause. I mean, I'm not sure how. It doesn't seem to me like the Iranians have shot down any Israeli jets. But by the same token, it doesn't seem to me like the Israeli operation is going to cause a regime change in America, even if the United States joins. So yeah, between Israel and Iran, there is no good option. Even for people like me who tend to see issues in terms of black and white. In all honesty, this is a gray area. I mean, I would not, recommend that the United States cause the Iranians to attack our bases throughout the Middle East, because that would be a disaster and result in, thousands of troops getting slaughtered with missiles. And for the Israelis, the question I would have for them is, how do you plan on preventing the daily barrage of missiles from Iran from coming in when you're running out of interceptors? I mean, the Iranian regime are a bunch of barbaric bullies. I don't in any way condone what they did. And I think that the Russians are a bunch of barbarians as well. In modern times, it seems like civilization is under attack by, a large group of, barbarians that overwhelm the air defenses of democracies with artillery bombardment. That is eventually going to cause a nuclear war, I think. I believe that the Europeans need to rearm. I believe that Poland should have nuclear bombs, as should the Baltic states. And they should send a message to Russia that, they're going to use the nuclear weapons if they, invade the way they did with Ukraine. I can only hope that the Europeans start to ramp up arms production before the Russians conquer half of Ukraine. Because, I mean, it seems like if Russia conquers half of Ukraine, they'll get the whole thing. I mean, we talk about the millions of Russians that have died, but we don't know how many Ukrainian soldiers have died, except to say that it's probably more. So if Russia lost 1 million soldiers, it seems like the losses for Ukraine must be staggering. I would say that they're probably like 1.2 million soldiers. I've heard stories about towns in Ukraine having their entire, populations decimated. In some Ukrainian villages, there are no young people like me because they were all sent, to the front lines and were killed. But that being said, uh, the Ukrainians are still putting up a hell of a fight. You had that operation last month wherein they blew up one third of the Russian nuclear bombers with drones, and I think that that definitely shows that Trump is on the wrong side of history when he abandons Ukraine, and I think that Donald Trump uh, will be harshly judged by his treatment of the Ukrainian people. As to if he should join Israel and bomb, there's no good options. I mean, it, whether or not he should bomb Iran determines it could easily thrust the region into an all-out war and even cause the United States troops to get expelled from the region permanently. So, yes, Trump has got a lot to think about, and I hope he makes the right decision. Oh, all right, guys, thank you for tuning in to this podcast. I had a great time chatting with you.